Hi, how are you doing? Welcome to a new episode of the Crochet Along With Me vlog. I'm Andrea and I create the videos on this channel. You've probably seen a few of them before. And I also create patterns for crochet, Tunisian crochet, and sometimes knitting, wearables and accessories. In this vlog, I usually show you what I've been up to during the past month and what's upcoming. Sometimes sharing information about events that are coming up, and sometimes we have a discussion on a topic, and probably in this episode we'll talk a lot about fitting round yoke sweaters and cardigans. I like to start each episode by reading a comment from the previous vlog, and if you leave a comment below, then I will probably read yours in the next episode. So in the past episode I showed you this sweater that I'm wearing now, and Deborah Goodwin 5663 said, "I love the sweater, I will be wanting to do that when it comes out. Well done, it's beautiful, thank you." And let's see when this will be written up. For now, I don't know. I wanted to wear it for this episode so that I can show you how it fits, and of course I'm sitting down, so my belly is a bit out here, but you can see that it fits nicely. Maybe the sleeves are a bit short now that I washed it. You can see it has a very comfortable fit. There is no issue at the underarms, so yes, I plan on writing this up at some point, but right now I'm focusing more on round yokes. In this episode I will be showing you what I've been making during the months of January and February, because I filmed the previous episode in the middle of January and it would have been weird to just film a vlog for 2 weeks of making. I mean, I could have shown you something, but this is a lot of work for me, so it's better to show you what I've been doing during the past 6 weeks or so. This is one of the projects that has been in progress and then frogged partially and then remade. And this is what I'm working on. If you remember from the previous episode, I had a bunch of the body made and one sleeve. Now we have 2 sleeves, well, the yellow part at least, and I frogged the whole body that I made from the separation. And had I not made the sleeves, I would have frogged more, because I realized that the back, when worn, would create some waves, and I don't like that. So the back is narrower than the front. If you measure, in my case of course, if you measure from the side seam, so the middle of the underarm area, across the front and across the back, you will have 2 different measurements. And I divided this project equally, so the back is the same width as the front, and for the front it was perfect because the bust uses up all of this fabric, so it lays nicely. But for the back it's too much, and I had tried to fix this by adding decreases here at the underarm. The problem with that is that it creates a pucker here. So if you pull on something that is rounded like this, and by adding decreases here, you essentially pull the fabric towards the front. You then create a bump, and when worn, this looks like waves on the back. And you don't usually see this in round yoke sweaters or cardigans in the knit ones, because people don't show you the back. After doing a lot of research about round yoke sweaters and how to fix the back so that it doesn't become baggy like that, as I told you, I decided to redo this section and to work straight for the back and the front. And if I add any decreases, it will be at the princess seams. In sewing, you have these vertical lines that go through the apex of the bust, and then on the back you have them mirrored. They are not exactly 1/4 from the edge, but that's where I would add the decreases for the bust and for the back as well if I want to do that. In this case, I would probably just follow the lines created by the wedges that you see here. So we have 4 sections for the back, and I would decrease along here to add a bit of shaping to the back. But I think I will just work straight. It's just easier, and then I will have a very swishy cardigan. For the sleeves, I stopped because I didn't know if I should continue with the bee motif or if I should just make something simple, because I have about this much left. This much will be the ribbing, and then the bee, there is enough space for one bee, but I'm not sure if it's not too much to have the bees on the body and then on the sleeves as well. I don't know. Let me know what you think, if I should make the bees on the body as well. So yeah, I frogged a bunch here, and then now I'm building it back up. And it was in timeout for a while because I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. So I just started learning more. And I will show you the results of those study sessions, let's call them, in the finished objects section, which is a bit later after I show you a few more whips, and you will understand why I undid all of this and I'm remaking it. I know it's a lot because you have both the front and the back in one row, but for the finished project that I will enjoy wearing without the puckers at the back, I am willing to do that. And you will see in a few moments that that's not the longest type of row that I've frogged, nor the most complicated. So I will set this aside for a moment and I will show you something else that I've been working on. This is a February project, and it's a cardigan in progress. You will recognize the same construction, but now we have only 11 sections, and we have 2 for the front on each side, so that's 4, 2 for each sleeve, and 3 for the back. So in this case I decided that the back would be way too wide if I added 4 sections, and like this it's just very comfortable, just perfectly wide as it is. And it uses a stitch pattern, a lacy stitch pattern, also in Tunisian crochet, that I designed last year, and the intention was to make a shawl or a capelet, but I have enough of those. So after I made the Ruby Phoenix capelet, if you remember that one, it was very fluffy and very elegant. I decided that I want a cardigan that looks like that, so giant sleeves, a very big bottom. So this is what it will be, and I will continue increasing. As you can see, I didn't stop increasing the body, and then I will add the sleeves, then they will also have this huge volume at the end. So this should be a, I don't know, princess cardigan. So far I've used 1 and a bit of these balls of yarn. This is Papatia Angora. It's the same yarn that I used for the Larimar capelet and the Ruby Phoenix capelet, but a different color. And I still have yarn for the same color, like those 2. And I'm planning on making some more cardigans. Initially I wanted to make the equivalent project in knitting, but I'm slow knitting. I'm very slow, and you will see in just a few moments. So there is no point in that, and I have other knitting projects that I want to do, so there is no point in repeating this stuff in knitting. If knitters ever find me and want to make one of these in knitting, I will send them the chart, but I think I want to focus on Tunisian crochet for now. And yes, I have one more knitting pattern that I need to write up, and I haven't done it yet. It's just waiting. Just like before with the issues with the back, since this one is just increasing, I decided to just continue increasing and to see what happens when it's finished. And I added the section at the underarm, as you should whenever you make a round yoke anything, and instead of decreasing, I just continued plain lace pattern, which as you can see I made a mistake on already, but it was many rows ago when I realized I was about this much into it, and I tried to frog and it didn't work. It's so difficult to frog this yarn. This is 80% acrylic and 20% wool, but it's, as you can see, it has a halo, so it's almost like a brushed yarn. So it sticks to itself. And yesterday I spent many hours undoing and redoing the same rows because I kept making mistakes. So it takes a lot of concentration. There are a few rows that are pretty difficult, but after that it gets easier. It will continue like this type of motif. I am very much in love with this project, and I've been working on it for a bit over a week, and I used up already 600 meters of yarn, so this is going to get finished soon, and I don't know how soon I'll be able to write up the pattern. Maybe, probably sooner than other patterns with a similar construction, because it's just wedges. So you just make these repeats until you reach the length needed to divide for sleeves, and then you continue. So I will probably write this up before I write up the other simpler things, or maybe I will just make another one with a plain lace, or even without lace, a plain fabric, and write that up. I don't know. Another whip that I've showed you before and I made progress on, but it's not finished, is the Porcurno shawl by Annick and Alice. And I don't know if you can see that now we have 3 rows with beads, and I think the next row will also have beads. So I'm 3 repeats in, and I blocked the fabric, and it's much nicer to work with when it's blocked than when it's all scrunched up. So as you can see, it's quite big. So one row takes me a long time. I think half an hour for one row, maybe between 20 minutes and half an hour. So this is just a project that I only work on during the weekends, because it's not a work project, it's a leisure project, and it's a bit repetitive because you have the same pattern. So I have 1.5 more repeats of this left, and then the edging. As you can see, it's a very beautiful fabric, and I'm almost running out of the orange yarn. I think I have enough for one more row or 2, and then I originally wanted to use some sock yarn in the same color, but I'm pretty sure that this is the same yarn. It's also shiny like this, so it will probably be better to continue with this other one, and then I will over dye the whole thing anyway. So this one was dyed with mushrooms, if I remember correctly, and I will dye this with probably some food dye. I'm going for pink to this peach. I hope to not change the peach right in the middle very much, so it will go from bright pink through kind of pinkish orange to the orange. So that's the plan, but I'm slow. It takes forever to make one row, and adding the beads is nice. I don't know why the designer chose to put the beads on the wrong side. So this is the wrong side of the fabric where you put the beads in. And I have one more knitting project to show you. I just started this, so it's very small still. This is a free pattern. I will link it in the description. And it's very similar to something that I'm going to show you that I designed independently before finding this one. So this is knitting. I made a Tunisian crochet. It's a round yoke top. It can be made into a sweater. I'm going to make a summer top. This is merino wool, but it's quite soft and light, so I think it will be okay for summer for me here because it doesn't get very warm here. It started with a provisional cast on. I used the cotton. I do not recommend that you ever use cotton for a provisional cast on. That's my mistake. It's the first time I used it, so next time I would use a wool or something very slippery like this merino, just in a contrasting color. And I'm working on 3mm needles, and I got the gauge a bit slightly smaller, so tighter than the pattern, because this yarn has 150 meters per 50 grams, and the yarn used in the pattern I think has 120 or something, so it's a bit thicker, but I don't mind. I am making size 4, which is, I hope it will give me a top with no ease, like I like them. And yeah, it has some shaping, short row shaping for the back to lift up the back of the neck, and then it has bust shaping. So it has also this starburst like pattern in wedges, and then a plain fabric body, which is exactly what I did here. I started this in early January and finished it in a few days, so we're in finished project territory now. It was very funny to find this pattern after I made this, but it's not a problem. So this is the front, that was the back that I was showing you, and it looks exactly the same, except there's a bit of a jog here where the rows meet. This is worked in the round with a 5mm Tunisian crochet hook, and I used the double-ended hook with a cable, and then I started using a straight hook with 2 ends in the same size. I bought those. They came from the US, and I do not recommend them, so I will not even show you the hooks, and I will not recommend them to anyone. Just don't buy bamboo double-ended hooks. They are crap. This is made in wedges, and it has a simple lace pattern. You can make it as complicated as you want. The idea is to just start with something, and then my plan is to publish a book, something like that, with several patterns where you have the shape, and then you have several patterns of lace. So you have the Larimar capelet, the Ruby Phoenix capelet, this one that I just showed you in pink. They all have the same number of stitches of increases, so they're all the same shape. So you could replace the lace itself in here and follow the rest of the pattern as written to make your own unique garment. That's my idea. Now, if I'm going to succeed in doing that, I have no clue, but we will see. So this is one of the garment designs that I intend on having for that project, and I made a mistake here, so I will remake this. Not this particular one because it's already finished, but I added decreases at the underarm, which was, as you saw before, not a smart decision. And now the back is a bit wavy, as I told you it would happen, so these bumps are visible when I wear the top. this is what the top looks like. As you can see, it's a bit big on me, it's a bit wide. I put some positive ease into it, and you can probably notice that the sleeve has a bit of a bump here. It's because I realized too late that I had increased here and it was just flaring out. So I decided to add a decrease, which is a bad idea. Just don't do it. To prevent the flaring out, just stop increasing around this area earlier. It's a thing that I would also do in the back. So for something like this where you have some wedges that increase continuously, if you're like me and need a bigger size, then you can keep increasing just here at the underarm, in the front and in the back. This is called a raglan increase, and you can add it on top of the round yoke increases to increase the length without adding more volume to the front, sides and back. So this is one option that I would also do in the written pattern for the bigger sizes. So that essentially means that you stop increasing in these spots for the back, and even for the front it seems like it's a bit too much for me here. And yeah, then that should take care of the waviness in the back if it's done early enough, and should get you a nice shaping for the underarm. And you always have to cast on a few stitches here at the underarm, because otherwise you will not be able to lift your arm. And if you're making a summer top especially, you want to have some freedom of movement. So in this case I think I will undo the few rows of sleeves here, and I will buy some new yarn, and then I will add some sleeves. It's supposed to be a summer top, but it came out a bit thick. The yarn is 45% cotton and 45% wool and 10% alpaca. So it's a bit fluffy. It's not fluffy like wool, but it's kind of fluffy. So it's still rigid because of the cotton, and it's not as cool as expected. So the yarn is called Demetra by Adria Fil from Italy, and it has 150 meters per 50 grams. But as you can see, this same weight of yarn is not the same depending on the composition. So the cotton with wool and alpaca is much thicker and fluffier than the 100% merino. So this will be a much lighter summer top than this one. I will probably buy some more yarn to just finish this up as a sweater, and then I will design some colorways and remake this in a gradient using 2 cakes of yarn, so one for the forward pass and one for the return pass. That's the plan anyway. I already have a gradient top, so if you've been reading my weekly emails you have seen this before, and also this one. And this is a regular crochet project, and it's also made in the round but with a 2.5mm hook. This is 1,000 meters of yarn. So the top is very lacy, the bottom is nice and even in double crochet stitches, and it's inside out. You can notice a bit of a slant towards one side. This is a problem when you work regular crochet in the round. If you don't change the direction at the end of every row, then you have a little jog forming, just like in amigurumi. When you work amigurumi, you have to keep in mind that the first stitch will move to the side. With double crochet it moves a bit slower, so you can notice this jog here. Even though I used a standing double crochet stitch for the beginning of the row, you can still see it. So in the second iteration of this. I will modify the feathers. They will be a bit shorter and rounder here at the bottom, and I will work in turned rounds so that the feathers don't just all go like this, or yeah, in the front they're going like this. And if we align the bottom edges, there should be a difference here. I tried to add short row shaping. In knitting, usually you can add short row shaping here at the back of the neck or after finishing the yoke to lift up the back neck. But in crochet, short row shaping is complicated and looks ugly because you can see all the short rows, and especially in something like this where you have the same tall stitches everywhere, it would be very obvious. So what I did was I made many of the rows with taller stitches. So instead of using double crochet for the stitches on the back, I used extended double crochet stitches. And I did that by starting with a shorter row and then longer and longer. So I was still going in the round, but for a section of each round, I made the stitches taller. And I started quite late. I started about here. If you look at the fabric, you will see. And you need to do this over a long section, so quite a few rows, to be able to see the impact in the front, so that the front goes a bit lower than the back. So in the future, I would make that for the whole yoke. Just every row you have a section that is a bit longer than the previous one with extended double stitches. For the front, it goes up to about here. So the longest section of 12 stitches would be all around, minus these two feathers in the front. And the rest of them would be shorter every row, and then the shortest would be about the 2 feathers long as well. So if you're using other patterns, you can do that as well. It depends on the stitch pattern. But if you use something like this where you have the same height of stitches, you can even change just the golden loop if you're able to. If you have good tension, then it's difficult to vary how high you pull up the first loop. So it's easier to just make an extended stitch instead of the regular stitch. And the difference is really small. But when you add up all the tiny differences, then you get quite a big difference between the front and the back. And when you just look at the fabric, you can't see it. So the plan is to write this up, make another sample in another gradient yarn from Shawl, because I like to collaborate with them. So there will be a kit for that as well. And I need to learn how to grade yoke sweaters. That's what it is. And I will show you how this fits on me. I really like how this fits because of the cotton in the yarn. This is Yarn Art Rose Garden, which is 100% cotton. It has a very nice drape. As you can see in this one, there is no issue at the sleeve cap because I didn't do any decreases. I actually did a bit of that raglan shaping here. I just made a few rows with only increases at the underarm. So this ensures a much better fit for the underarm area and the sleeve. So the sleeves are made, as you can see, they have the same colorway all along, just like the body. I did this by cutting the yarn and attaching it to each sleeve separately. I only had 1 cake of yarn. If you want to do this, it's easier to have 2 cakes of the same color you make the body, and then you get to the sleeves, you do color control. So you separate all the colors from the second cake, and you count the number of rows that you have for the body in one color, and make the same number of rows for each sleeve. This means that you will only have to weave in the ends for the sleeves and not for the body. And I had to weave in a lot of ends for the body as well. And you will have the same progression of colors for this area as you do for the rest of the project. But if you do it like I did with just one cake, this area will have narrower stripes because you have much less yarn to work with, because you also need to make the sleeves. The good thing about the method that I used is that I have very, very little yarn left over, because I just used up each color first in the sleeves. I made 2 rows and then 2 rows and a bit in the body. If you use the 2 cake method, then you'll probably have some yarn left over. But anyway, if you use something like Cotton Kings or Sultan yarn, or another type of cake with just 800 meters per 200 grams, 200 gram cake, then you will need more than 1 cake anyway, if you don't make just the smallest size, which will probably be doable with an 800 meter cake. Once I write this up, I will get some yarn and I will start testing. So if you're interested in testing, make sure you're subscribed to my email updates, because I send the testing calls to my email subscribers. I don't post them anywhere else unless I need a few extra testers for a specific size, and usually people don't see those anyway. Another project from these past 2 months is this beanie. It's a cat ear beanie, or a pussy hat if you want to use the official term. It's made in the sock yarn that I showed you in the previous episode. I couldn't resist, so I had to make it. You can see that it's made sideways, so I worked it like this, open. It was worked in a rectangle, and then I seamed the first row to the first row, the last row to the last row. If you want to see the inside out, it also looks nice inside out. The stitch pattern is a combination of Tunisian simple stitch and Tunisian knit stitch, and you can see it looks pretty nice on the back as well. And the ribbing is reversible. It's the most elastic ribbing that you have a video for on the channel. It doesn't look so good on me, I don't know why, maybe it's my head shape, but it doesn't matter. The idea is to be able to make one if you want to. The world is not a great place right now, and a few years ago people started making these beanies with cat ears and calling them pussy hats. And there are several patterns for these hats in knitting, and I think of one at least in regular crochet, and I wanted to contribute one in Tunisian crochet. I will write it up, I don't know when or how, I don't know when. I'm kind of stuck writing right now, but when I write it up, and I will put it on the blog and I will let you know when that happens. It's a very, very simple pattern, and if you want to, you can put a pin here to make the ears more obvious, and I will call it the Mitzi Mutze. Mitzi is an endearing term you can use for cats, and it's a dedication to the friendly neighborhood cat, the cat that greets me very happily every time I go for a walk on the street. She's a European tabby, I believe, with stripes like this, like you see here, but in brown and a bit of black. If you like tabbies, you can use a variegated hand-dyed yarn and replicate the patterning on their fur with this kind of sideways pattern. Normally with knitting you work in a round and then you add the ribbing, but because this ribbing needs to be attached sideways, I chose to just make the whole thing sideways, and the fur pattern is just a happy accident. Maybe it will bring someone a bit of joy. I hope things change, but I know they will not change very soon, and it will. I don't want to be a downer in my monthly vlog, so I'll get back to other topics. I think that's it for finished projects that are crochet. I have some other types of finished projects to show you. I am wearing one. This is a pair of pants that I made. I sewed from the Puckle Pants free sewing pattern. I will link it in the description if you want to check it out. And I made a pair of woolen pants as well. I used the same pocket construction as for the Puckle Pants. They are lined with a nice lining cotton. The pattern itself is based on a pair of pants that fits me well. And yeah, they're not super beautiful. They have an elastic here. And I managed to get the seam in the front and in the back nicely aligned with the pattern. Even though the side seams are not aligned, I didn't realize that I could do that, so maybe the next pair will have the side seams aligned. I have a finished yarn. I made it from a mix of Corriedale wool. It's spun on drop spindles. The wool comes like this. It's a commercial comb top, and you can see it's a mix. And I used my 3D printed drop spindles to spin 2 singles, and then I applied them also on the drop spindle. This is what a single looks like, made on one of these. This is a turtle, and yeah, I made this during the past month. It's not a lot of yarn. I think it's 20 something grams, 28 grams, so maybe enough for a pair of mittens, or fingerless mittens, or I will make some more and then I will make actual mittens. And you can see the thickness is about the decay weight. I'm doing what is called a breed study, and this is my old merino, leaving that aside for a bit now. This is commercial merino, so you can see it's completely different from what I was able to do when I washed some merino by myself from raw fleece. This is what I was able to come up with, and this is what you can buy. I think it's about the same thickness. It's not super fine merino, but it's not as pleasant to work with as the other ones. This is a blue-faced Leicester, and it has a really long staple. You can see. Okay, and then this is Falkland. This is a bit more yellow than the BFL, and it's also very, very long in staple. And I am trying all of them. I bought 7 different breeds, and I'm making yarn from all of them so that I can see which one I prefer the most. For now, it's the BFL. I also like the Falkland a lot. And this one also, the Corriedale. Very nice to work with. I don't have just a white Corriedale that I could dye, but I like the humbug. Merino is, I think, among the last ones. I don't like it that much. It's quite sticky. The one that I washed and I combed myself, it's not very good, because I didn't know how much I should wash it. This one is still sticky. It still has some grease in it, so I should rewash it. And here's some Jacob wool, and these are 2 singles that I'm going to apply. This one is 60 grams and this one is 80 grams. I'm pretty sure I have more length here than this here, because I started with a very thick yarn. It's chain ply here. So I made a thick single first while learning to use the spinning wheel, and then I made this one. I filled the bobbin, and then this one, and I learned a lot while making both of them. and I will apply these together and we'll use them in some project in the future. But this is my first finished yarn from the spinning wheel. As you can see, it's quite thick. I would call it between worsted and chunky weight. It's 3-ply, so it's one single chain plied. It's quite round if you look at it, and pretty fluffy. So I think I will make slippers from it if I have enough for 2 slippers. If not, a slipper and a half, and I will make some more from the brown Jacob's wool. I bought 500 grams of each wool to try out and to make enough and to have enough to make mistakes. And the thing is, it's super cheap, so it's about €2 for 100 grams of wool, and so I was able to get a lot to try different techniques of spinning, to also dye. I will over dye the white ones. For now I'm experimenting with the hand spinning with the drop spindle, but I will over dye the tops, or I will over dye the finished yarn. This is my new hobby. So crochet is work, knitting is work now, so spinning is my new hobby. Also sewing, but I don't sew as much. And upcoming, I don't know what's coming next month. I have to look at the whiteboard, but I will probably not make a lot of stuff from that whiteboard. I keep moving things around, and that's okay. The idea is to have all the desired projects somewhere and just assign them to a specific week, so that I know that I have some time if I want to work on them, but I don't think I will work on all of them. And anyway, I'm enjoying this very, very much. This one is just, I don't know, just flying off the hook. And I love the drape of this yarn. I did steam block this because I wanted to see how it fits, and I cannot check the fit if the fabric is all scrunched up. But yeah, I think I will love the finished project here. So I hope you enjoyed seeing all of these. I hope you learned something about round yokes. If you are interested in what I'm publishing besides the tutorials here on the channel, check out the weekly email that I send out on Friday. I will probably send it out less often now. I don't know, I will have to think about it. And if you're on Patreon, download your pattern before I change it tomorrow, because on the 1st of each month you get a new pattern. So make sure you download your free pattern before it goes away at the end of the month. I'm not sure yet what pattern I'm sharing for March, but you can let me know what you're interested in, what hasn't already been in the Patreon. And if you're not a patron yet, you can become a free member. I post blog posts there that I don't share on the main blog because they're more personal and not so technical. So if you're interested in me blabbing in writing, go become a free member. And if you want one free pattern a month, then you can become a paid member. And usually you get higher value for your money. I have video tutorials ready to go for the next few weeks, so if you're interested in those, make sure you subscribe to the channel, but also open the weekly emails, because that's how you make sure that you know what's newly published, because even notifications on YouTube don't work. Even if you ring the little bell, it's useless. So if you want to know when I publish anything new, open the weekly email. That's it. Have a nice month. Bye.